Hello, everybody. I have returned. Sorry for the wait, but you know how it goes when you're working and still trying to do a wonderful channel like this, on a regular basis. Be so busy, but I don't forget about you guys. I got a story for you today. First thing I want to do, I want to give a shout out to all the families of the original Batman. He basically paved the way for all of the actors that have played the role of Batman. Adam West was definitely one of the best that started it all. Like I said, he paved the way for a lot of actors who wanted to play the role. And I always thought it was kind of weird how you got different actors playing the same exact character. But the character alone is synonymous with pride, so that's the reason why a lot of people want to play the role. They even got Ben Affleck doing it now. I think that was a poor choice, but that's just my opinion. But I just want to say that we lost a good one. I was very surprised when I found out about that he passed away. He was I think they say he was 84 or 89, something like that. But he lived a good life. He basically, like I said, he was doing a lot of things. He was the voice of Catman on the Fairly Odd Parents. He kind of played the same role, but it's just a cat. But he was this senile old man who lived in a psych ward because he kind of. I think they said the basis of his character is that he was an out of work child actor who's grown, but his child life was so minuscule that he started to believe that he actually was Catman. So he runs around in his cat suit all the time, acting like he's actually doing doing a good deed for the city or whatever. But anyway, big ups to Adam West, and may he rest in peace. All right, guys, you know what time it is. It is time to get started. It's time to freak your mind out with a disappearance that makes no sense whatsoever. I want to talk about a 47-year-old mystery that happened in Wichita Falls in northern Texas, Houston, Texas, as a matter of fact. Now, as most experts or people in that area would say, children don't just disappear. Well, that remains to be seen, and that also is what most people living in Wichita Falls in the 1960s thought as well. Now, around December 9th, 1961, 11-year-old Andy Sims vanished, launching what has become a 47-year-old mystery. What happened to Andy? Well, that's the big question here, but no one seems to know the answer. Now, Andy, who was in the 5th grade at Jefferson Elementary School, lived at 4600 Stanford, a corner house tucked into a quiet neighborhood not far from what today is Northwest Parkway. That part of town has developed a lot since the early 1960s, when it was a newer suburban area still surrounded by dairy and pasture land. Now, Andy was home at the time with his brother Donald, who was about, I'd say, a year older than he was. Now that morning, while their mother, while their mother Ellen, who was a nurse, she was working. The boy's stepfather, William Sims, was in the National Guard and had been called up with the 49th Armored Division to go to Fort Polk in Louisiana during the Berlin crisis. So I would imagine that he was going to take the boys with him. But I guess before that actually happened, that's when all hell broke loose and things went awry. Now, Saturday morning dawned with fog ghosting across Wichita Falls, but about the time Andy dressed for winter in a coat and knitted cap, he was said to have gone outside to play early in the afternoon. Now, it was real cold, but bits of blue sky was peeking through the clouds at that point, so that meant that the temperature was gonna rise since the sun was coming out. Now, Any other day, Andy might have ridden his bicycle, but that particular day it was actually broken. So he basically walked the rest of the way, to go play wherever he was going to play. Now the temperatures broke briefly from the colder, drizzly weather that had settled over the area. The mercury spiked into the 50s. I would imagine the mid 50s. That happens here too. When it's like during the winter time, sometimes it'll be like 50 degrees or 55. It'll be a nice moderate temperature. It's not too cold, it's not too hot. It's like just right. And apparently that's what happened there too at that time. Now before the frigid winds settled, rattled it down to freezing by the next morning. The cold would seize the city for days. The chill not letting up as volunteers, many summoned by pleas on television broadcasts, joined law enforcement and emergency workers in massive but fruitless searches for Andy. That same Saturday, hundreds of miles away in California, Steve Douglas, and I'll be getting to that part in a second. It's kind of crazy, but at the same time pretty cool. Steve Douglas, who had turned 2 at the time, was unaware he would be for decades that Andy Simpson existed, and that Andy was his older half brother. Now, okay, the plot thickens. Now, growing up, Douglas knew his father had been married before. He knew his father had a son, Donald, but didn't come across the first mention of Andy until he started researching his father's history after his father, Donald Ace Douglas Sr., who was Andy's biological father, died in 2001. So he had, he had, okay, you got, I'm trying to figure something out here, because Donald was his older brother who he lived with when he was a kid. And then this new guy pops up, who his name is Steve Douglas. So obviously he had the child by their mother, Ellen, and he had Steve was birthed by another woman. Okay, so he actually has 2 half brothers, not just one. Okay, so all right. So anyway, moving on. Okay, Steve Douglas, who lives in Gahanna, Ohio, and is retired from the police force there, traveled to Wichita Falls this year with longtime colleague and friend Becky Wolf to see what they might be able to learn about Andy's life and disappearance. Douglas doesn't hold out much hope for finding Andy, who would be a 58-year-old man alive today. He is prepared for the probability of a far less favorable outcome, one many others share, and that would be pretty much everybody in that entire town. And it kind of reminds me of what happened with Madison Scott, because the entire town is pulling for her return and doing whatever they can to find her by creating poker rides and just going out every single day for the past 7 years to look for any clues that might turn up, and produce any type of visual evidence to state where she has been all that time or what may have happened to her before she, disappeared. But yeah, so as a police officer, I find it very difficult to believe that he simply wandered off and succumbed to the elements and they never found a body. This is what, Douglas was telling, the news media. Now, if something happened to Andy, whether he fell victim to the weather or other circumstances or met with foul play, Douglas wants to find out what happened. Even if they can't solve what happened to him, Douglas hopes to find Andy to give him a proper burial. Now, this is an ongoing investigation that's been pretty much going on since 1961. It says here Wichita Falls police who were first notified that Andy was missing about 8 p.m. on December 9th, 1961. Also still hope to learn what happened to him, mainly to bring whatever closure they can to Andy's family. This is what a man named Sergeant Bill Henning was saying, who supervises the criminal investigation section in that area. Let me see now. Andy was home between noon and 12:30 p.m. that Saturday when Ellen Sims called the house to talk to Donald, and the investigation shows that. Now, Donald reported Andy left the house between 12:45 and 1 p.m. to go out and play. A guy named Detective Tony Fox had said. That was the last time he was actually seen by anyone, which is the one thing that happens with a lot of these disappearances, especially children. You know, they wander off, and that will be the last time they've ever been seen, and all of a sudden they just disappear from existence. You know, which is the biggest upset of all when it comes to any child disappearing. You know, and there's never any sign of a struggle or any sign of any kind of like. Or whatever, you know, there's never no evidence, you know, in their disappearance. There isn't even any evidence to even state that they were in the area at the time when they disappeared. It's just like everything is, you know, whisked away, you know, so that nobody will even realize that he was even there. But they still know that he disappeared. They just leave him with that thought. You know, he disappeared. Now what? It's crazy. Okay, now Fox had taken the lead on the decades old case, which is still an open investigation. The documents from 1961 police work add up to a stack a couple of inches thick. Ellen Sims returned home about 2:30 p.m. She had done some shopping. The case records had showed at that point. Let me see. Members of Andy's family were the first to search for him. The boy's mother sent Donald out to look for his brother, and other family members joined in the unsuccessful search. The family called the police about 8 p.m. and later called again. Andy's disappearance is classified as it has always been, as a missing person case with the Wichita Falls Police Department. We're currently re-looking at the case, Henning said. Although some of the information was probably lost with people who have since died, there are still people living today who might hold key details, and investigators hope to have another chance to see if they can help piece together what really happened that December, nearly 5 decades ago. Yeah, that's one heck of a story about that young boy, and it's a real upset. And I know the families are just distraught because they haven't been able to find him in 47 years and still haven't found him. And the question is, will they ever find him? And what kind of evidence will they ever be able to dig up to state that he's either fine, or even if he's actually dead and they find his remains? You know, something like this where a young child that disappears and never returns, and there's no evidence to state that he was ever even there, is a big upset, because they just vanished without a trace. And just parents and just anybody just can't fathom that. They can't even grasp the idea that a child could just walk into oblivion and never return. And that seems to be what happened with Madison Scott. She just vanished without a trace. Now, questions arise about that, but I try not to go into that because they're still looking for her, and I hope one day that they will find something, whether it be an article of clothing, bone fragments, whatever, even a tooth, you know. But it still leans towards, after they got all the other stuff out of the way, like people who may have been involved in her murder and got rid of the body, there isn't too many places you can actually, make a body disappear in that area. Even though it's very thick with brush and woods and stuff like that, there's still going to be a part where they're going to actually find her. And the fact that cadaver dogs can't seem to pick up a scent when it comes to people disappearing like that and are never found. It's like you got a pile of different senses or different smells on top of a dead body. Even though the smell of a rotting corpse, even though she's been missing for 7 years, so there's really no chance of them even finding flesh on the body. It'll be all picked over by bugs and animals and all that stuff. So you're just gonna find the bones. Now, can a cadaver dog sniff out bones? Yeah, they can, because dogs love bones. So they know what bones smell like. So I would think they'd be able to find the bones, right? That's not the case. They just can't find the scent. The scent just disappears. Like, say if a body's laying right here in front of you, right? And then all of a sudden, poof, it just disappears. The scent goes right along with it. I mean, the scent probably will stay there, but if these beings are clever enough, they will take the scent with them as well. It's like they put the body in a bubble, and any kind of smell that's behind it or around the body would go with it. I don't know. But the validation video that I posted a couple weeks ago about greys and reptilian aliens that actually eat humans alive, preferably little children and babies, that kind of gears you towards all of this when it comes to what happened with Andy Sims. He just disappeared without a trace. No clothing left behind, no nothing. It's just, he just vanished. Now, the fact that they haven't found him within 47 years, that is a very big, it's a very large space between all the other times when children are being found 4 years later, well, the remains anyway, or sometimes the young children are found days later wandering somewhere in the mountains, or they come out of where they were after days and don't have a memory of what happened to them, which is what happened with Catherine Van Alst and Keith Parkins, who is now in his mid-60s. So he's alive and well. He even still has the clothing that he wore that day. His mom had kept it all those years, and he took possession of it, I guess, after she passed away. Because if you know that, you obviously saw the movie that David Paulides put out, Missing 411, the movie. But anyway, yeah, very strange circumstances surrounding his disappearance, and the fact that there is no trace of him whatsoever, clothing, shoe, you name it, none of it is even available to view, none of it is available to even find, so that they can piece together this mystery with some type of DNA. Maybe they got some fingerprints on the shoes that maybe somebody else's. If they try, let's just say they try to take the shoes off of him, right? Their fingerprints will be on the shoes if they weren't wearing gloves, which I know they probably will because they don't want to be found out. Was it a serial killer? I don't know. Was it a pedophile? Don't know that either. Was it aliens, or the fact that he walked into a dimensional portal that can't be seen by the naked eye, and after that there was no way for him to return? That's a possibility, because it gears towards that scenario. How can a person disappear without you thinking something like that? If he disappears, what else are you going to think? A serial killer is not going to do that. It's not going to make him disappear and clean up all evidence to make it look like he was never even there. They don't have that mentality. I don't even think even if they did, they wouldn't want to waste their time doing it, because they just want to kill the person and be done with it and get away so they won't be found. But they always leave evidence behind, no matter how small it is. It could be something that led back to them throwing a sandwich into a trash can. Because I saw a video about this the other day about someone that was it was a robbery, and this has nothing to do with the disappearance, but this is a robbery where they traced one person back to a sandwich that got thrown into a trash bin, and it had the person's DNA on it. So that's how they were found. So for scenarios like that in a disappearance case, if a person is abducted and they make them disappear, there is going to be some type of evidence, no matter how small, that leads back to that person. But when in cases like this, where a person or a child vanishes without a trace, that is highly unlikely that a human did it. This is a supernatural situation here, folks. I hate to say it, and if the family members are listening and you don't believe it, that's fine with me. You have your choice of thoughts in that matter because that is a family member of yours. I understand that. I even got a comment from a well, this is a whole different story right here. But I got a comment from a cousin of a young man that I actually made a video about. His name is Brandon Landau. His cousin sent me a comment, and her exact words were just take it down. And I was like, out of respect for your comment or whatever, may I ask why? And she said, that's my cousin. Please take it down. She said, just take it down. So, okay. I didn't argue. I wanted to respect her for that because obviously that was a touchy subject for her. Well, her family member was probably found. I think the outcome of the situation was he was found face down or face up in a body of water, I believe, in a lake somewhere. Oh, excuse me. But out of respect for her, I took it down. So if anybody was looking at that and you don't see it anymore, that's why. I just want to make that clear. I wanted to respect the fact that she didn't want to see that. So obviously she's a YouTuber and she's seen all my other videos and came across the one about her cousin. So for anybody else out there who is a family member of the victim, okay, I understand if you're hurting about what happened to your family member, and I understand if you want me to take it down. But at the same time, if there is some information about that person's disappearance and death that hasn't been put out there yet, I would love to interview any one of you. If you are watching my channel, if you're watching this very video, hit me up. Email me, because my email will be in the video description below. Email me, and if you want to talk about the case, put the information out there, especially if something weird about the case that never was put in the newspaper hasn't been said, you can come here and say it, because that's what my channel is all about. I want to get at the truth about everything, no matter how weird, no matter how mysterious it is. That's what this channel is all about. That's why I call it Insane Disappearances, because we talk about the theoretical possibility of something weird that happened that can't be explained by logical thought. Okay, so if you are one of those people, I implore you, contact me so that I may possibly get an interview, and we can talk about it, because I did that with Catherine Van Alsten, and she's the sweetest lady ever. I had a great time listening to her story, and she told me anything else you need to know, you can just call me and let me know, and we'll talk. So I will definitely do that in the near future if I feel the need to. Her whole family was cool, her granddaughter and her daughter, and I hate the fact that I got my information wrong, because it's like I said in that video, that unfortunately the internet doesn't post factual wordings about what happened to these people. Sometimes it gets embellished, or the story gets told so many times, at some point there's going to be something added to it to make it sound even more flashy. So that's why I would prefer to interview the person involved or a family member of the person. Just like that comment I got from Dale Stelling's grandson. Since he was so young, I said, you know what? I would love to talk to your father if he wouldn't mind talking about what happened to his father, because obviously there's a lot about his disappearance that no one is wanting to get out. The Park Service mainly, So I feel if you want to talk about it, even though it's only been 3 years, feel free to call me. I commented my number, to him, so he can give it to him. And if he feels like talking to me, he knows where to call me. I just would rather they email me first. That way I'll know it's them calling, or you can hit me up with a comment and we'll just go from there. But I have to know exactly where you're coming from and what state, so I know what area code to look for. So I don't want to, get a call from you and I not know it's you calling. So email me any information about who you are and your phone number or whatever, and I'll call you. Therefore, there won't be any, mix up in the information, or there won't be a cross up or just missing a call of a person that I actually had a chance to actually interview. So, you know, like I said, hit me up with an email first or comment on one of my videos to let me know that it's you and that you want to actually talk, because I would love to get the truth about what happened with Dale Stelling, because his disappearance is just as mysterious as any other person that disappeared in those parks, especially if it turns out to be a park ranger, you know. And that guy, I believe, is Paul Fougier. You know, he was one of the most famous disappearances of the national parks, because he was a park ranger, and the fact that they tried to cover it up and not pay the wife any money, you know, towards him being missing and all that stuff, and you know, his pension or whatever she had to fight to get it, and she did get it, but there's still no evidence of what happened to him. You know, they think he just walked away from his job and never came back. You know, so well, the Park Service said that. I know they know what really happened to him. They just trying to make it sound like he just walked away. You know, but anyway, yeah. But that's my time on this story. I got another one coming later on. So I'm gonna prepare this video with the with my new with my new opening credits, which I do love, and I'm glad you guys love it too. So I will see you guys once again later. Aloha, mahalo, and ahuiho. Peace out, guys. Love you.